Welcome to the Natural Parents Podcast, where we will cover all things faith, health, family, and wealth through a biblical perspective of putting things in life that matter most back into order. We're reminded in Matthew 6:33, where Jesus said, "But seek first the kingdom of God and all of his righteousness, and all of these things will be added unto you." Join us each week as we focus on what truly matters most in this life and passing those values on to the next generation. This is the Natural Parents Podcast with Ryan and Abby Hukin. All right, guys, welcome back. Today, we're super excited to bring you our thoughts on love languages. How do we love our spouse? And one, a way that our kids see a good representation of love, but in two, most importantly, in a way that they actually feel loved by us.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard because like anything, opposites attract. And so chances are your significant other, your spouse does not share the same love languages as you, but all the ways that you want to love them is just how you feel most loved.
Yeah, we had to bring out the notes today, so You'll check that out. It's going to keep us on point because things might get heated. No, I'm just kidding.
So the love languages, there's 5 of them. These were created by a man named Dr. Gary Chapman. And so he even has a test that you can do online at 5lovelanguages.com. But they are physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, and acts of service.
Yes. And all of us, in some way or another, feel most loved when our significant other, or anyone for that matter, shows us their love and appreciation through those methods, I guess, modalities, if you say. There might be 6, but this is a pretty authoritative text on the 5, right? And so there's scripture that I really think is relevant to this, and it comes from 1 John 3:18. And John confirms like how important it is for us to express love, because I really think this is a relevant conversation for anybody that's listening or any couples out there, because there are so many times where I tell you, I love you with everything I am. And you're like, hey, our relationship needs some work right now. I'm like, wait, what? What do you mean? But I'm loving you how I feel loved, right? Or trying to love you how I feel loved, or different things like that. And so John talks about this. In 1 John 3:18, it says, "Little children, let us love, not in word or speech, but in truth and action." And it's that action piece that really, whereas I think the love languages, the 5 love languages comes into play. So
yeah, and I feel like once you identify them, the communication gets better. Any frustration that you may have gets better because, with acts of service being one, that's one of my top ones. And so I'm like, well, here, let me do the laundry for you and make sure that all of your clothes are clean. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to feel so loved. And then he gets home and he's like, yeah, hug me. And I'm like, but I did your laundry. Can't you,
touch me, tell me how awesome I am, touch me again. Yeah. Those are my love languages.
You're so great. You're so great. If I give him any compliment, I'll give him a compliment. He's like, go on. Go on.
That's my number one response. She loves me through words, and I'm like, oh. Go on.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Physical touch and words of affirmation are definitely.
And could not be lower on mine is acts of service, right? So you love most well by serving me, which is so appreciated, but it's not often felt, right?
Yeah.
It's not often shown. And I'm the worst at that. That's because I'm just on my list, when I took the test, when I read the book too, that's another way, for anybody that wants to dive into the text, learn more about it. We are not the authority on this. We're just a vehicle to transmit this information to you guys. Dive in on it a little bit, but take the test. You'll be amazed. It shows you, this is your, I'm 90%, physical touch, but I'm also really high words of affirmation too. It was 80%, right? It's just the way you answer. I think it's 25 questions. It's not excessively difficult to go through. So.
Yeah, and so that's what I mean by opposites attract. So his first one's physical touch. And, yes, there's only 5 love languages, but if there were 10, the 11th for me would be physical touch. So it couldn't be.
Which I think in most instances, again, this is maybe a genericization. Is that a word?
It can be.
I think I made up a word. That oftentimes moms especially, who hang out with their kids all the time and get wallered to death. Our kids really feel love through touch.
They are definitely physical touch. And it's not that I don't love it, because I do. Any mom loves cuddles and lovin's, but there gets to be a point where it's like you're touched out, and that may just be a mom thing. But I mean, I'm trying to think. Of course, I was always on my mom's lap, even grown. I would sit on my mom's lap. So it's like, I don't know, it's not all physical
Like
touch.
last
It's just
week,
if I'm overwhelmed. Yeah. It is. But I don't know. I don't know if it's that, but PDA, like
Yeah.
I we can maybe hold hands in public. Like
Right.
otherwise I could just crawl into a hole and hide.
And she does. She tries to hide from me sometimes when we're in public. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, this would be so helpful if you guys dive in on this.
Yeah.
Get with your significant other, as a part of this whole thing that we're doing with the podcasts and the Natural Parents group and everything. It's just to, one, strengthen all these things that I think, as I always reference, Satan doesn't want to be strong. There is an attack on our relationships because if, as scripture says, what God brought together, no man could separate. So if no man can separate it, or woe man could separate it, then what is, right? Because there are so many things that are dividing couples in our world. It's not lost amongst anyone that divorce rates are at, 50+%. It's not how God had it designed. And he gives us a book, he gives us a true path to doing this right. And so oftentimes we try to do it our own way, myself included. I am not by any means perfect in this. But it's something that we all can grow in, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And then it's not something that you take the test, you see the results, and you're like, all right, I'll put it in my notes of how my spouse feels, or anybody for that matter, feels most loved. But it's constantly reminding yourself of that, and just noticing how you give love, like how I'm like, oh, Ryan will really appreciate when he gets here that this one time you came home, your truck's a mess, and I was like, when he comes home, I am gonna clean that thing out. I'm gonna vacuum it. I'm gonna everything. And so he got home, and I was like, I'm gonna take it down to my brother's house, and I'm gonna clean it out, and I'm gonna do all this stuff for you. And he's like, you really don't have to. You could just stay here with me. That's what matters. And I got in the truck and backed out of the driveway and then pulled back in. And I was like, okay, you will feel loved if I just stay here and hang out while, we make dinner and stuff like that, versus me going and doing how I would feel loved by cleaning out your truck.
Yeah. And so, another
that was hard.
Relevant thing. I just had this conversation with you yesterday. I don't care one bit most of the time if the house is messy.
Yeah, which really hurts.
and I think, again, if I may give any moms listening, any spouses listening permission that feel this way, that's like, oh, I've got to have it look in a certain way.
Yeah.
Most of us on the other side of that reciprocation, it's not, we appreciate it, like I said, but it's not the deal breaker. It's like, no, I love that our kids made a mess here today. It means they were home and having fun. And there's a mess to be grateful for and all these different things. But that's out of, a lifetime of practicing gratitude and all these different aspects of things too. But it's so many times I think we put our own intrinsic pressures upon ourselves that our spouse isn't giving us.
Yeah.
Right?
Completely.
If we just talked it through, we talk about conflict resolution, how many conflicts are actually out of a intrinsic, conversation that we never had?
Yeah.
It's hold on, that never happened here. So can I have a word in that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So something to think about for sure.
Definitely. So definitely go online, take the test, see what you are, have your significant other, best friend, spouse, whoever it may be, take the test as well. Compare, read the book, look up more information on it, and let us know what you are, what your love language is, how you're going to make that work in your relationship.
All right, so the question of the day is, what makes a good marriage?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
A patient husband. No, I think there's a lot. I always joke that it's a good thing that you're just so good and patient and I guess graceful. To me, I feel like that makes marriage easier and better.
Yeah. Well, I always think about too, people ask this question sometimes, what's the secret, right, to success? And while there may not be one individualized secret, I think the better question, albeit I posed it to you, what makes a marriage great? I think it's who makes a marriage great. And we oftentimes think about two people, the two people in the marriage, the husband and the wife. But more than anything is the third person of that marriage, which is the one that orchestrated it from the beginning, God. Even his word says, what he brings together, let no man separate. And so if God brings us together in marriage, we have to keep him in the forefront position of it. And I think when we look at, you say, a patient husband, I would say the exact same thing, a patient wife, because I can't imagine being married to me. But for some reason, God gives you the strength to do it on a daily basis. And what I oftentimes say is just like, it's service. It's that can we outserve each other in the way that person feels love?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? How do we and how should people keep God in the forefront position in their marriages?
I talk to, I feel like a lot of people who maybe the wife is more religious, if you want to say that, or wanting to go to church more and things like that, but it's hard to get her husband on board. And I think that that's a part that I've been very fortunate in, is that you lead that the way that it says to in the Bible. Like it says that the man and the husband should lead his family in that, and I feel like you do a really good job of that. And so I think that that's a component that you could say makes it easier to have a good marriage, is that you are there and you're setting the example in that.
Yeah.
And so then it's just, your family follows suit. Like you are the leader of the family. And so I think that making sure that you are going to a church that fills you up, not just going to a church, not just checking that box, but a church that truly makes you feel peaceful when you go, and not judged, and just happy, and that you can just absorb the lessons and the word and everything that is provided. I think that is the starting point for your marriage to really take a turn, because I think of just different things. Like I just think of different ways that I notice that I have changed. Sometimes that's hard to do, but I've been really reflecting on that. And I think that, I know I bring this up a lot just with you, like the fruits of the spirit. And that's why I'm really working with our kids to just teach them what the Bible says about that, because I think that when your heart changes, you are just different towards other people.
Right.
And then therefore, especially in your marriage.
Well, why I kind of chuckled, I was thinking about that, is our marriage, I would say, is successful because, and I think all marriages are successful, or all successful marriages that are successful because they actually put the marriage second. Is what you just said, right? Like,
so, yeah.
Not that you have to actually go to church. I mean, there's fruit of the spirit-filled life, and probably going to church and having some sort of corporate, worship pattern or something like that would probably be evidence of that. But I would say the best marriages that I can think of, and no one would actually say this outright, I think, on first instinct, but it's actually that their marriage and their spouse, even in that sense, is actually second in their relationship. Second, that almost sounds like, like uncomfortable.
I know it does.
Because there's no one on the planet that I love more than you. But God's not technically on the planet, and we are called to love him first and foremost, and out of his abundance for love, because God is love, like he is the definition of love. Out of that comes forth an ability to love each other better.
Yeah.
And I think when we focus on our relationship with God and our ability, like there's so much, obviously, so much in the living word, but like there's so much in the word about marriage. And God says, like, this, I designed it this way. I wanted you to have a companion. When he created Adam, like I've heard people say, like, oh, like honestly, that whole stuff in the beginning of the Bible, like it was set up to be, man over woman. And it was like, actually, I don't see it that way at all. And neither did God. He actually fashioned Eve from a rib, in my opinion, not so that he could stand over Eve or she could be behind him, but that they could walk through life side by side. And I think from the very, very beginning of creation, God created man, and then he created woman. And it's often a pastor that I really like to listen to, Joby Martin, he talks about all the time that in the beginning, God gave man three things: a will to obey, so he had to trust God and live out what God laid forth for him in his life; a woman to love; and a work to enjoy. And I think if we keep those three things in the forefront, men, that's who I'm speaking to when I say we, if we keep those things, I'm not saying every instance, every second of every interaction you and I have is blissful.
What?
We definitely have our disagreements and our communication errors and things that everybody's going to. But when we always come back to that, man, how much shorter are the disputes, so to speak? Because even if I'm the one that kind of blows my top or whatever, and I'm frustrated and life's going this way or whatever, it's like, oh, so quickly I just want to get out of that state. And it's because that's the grace that God's given me.
Right. And something that my best friend and I kind of joke about, like, because they have a really good marriage, her and her husband as well, is that, you know, I know that for one, it can be misconstrued that like respect means, and leadership of a husband means going along with whatever they do. But like you have to have like I guess standards, but also I don't know the word that I'm looking for. I can't place the word that I'm looking for, but standards and self-respect to know when there's that line drawn. When are you just going with it because he's your husband versus is he being the true leader that God meant for him to be?
Amen.
And so, you know, we joke that like we would be the first to be like, like if you guys, you know, did something not right. And I think that a lot of times it's hard for women to stand up for themselves in their marriage depending on that role. And I think that again that's where God comes in, because I think God just softens men. You know, like you're kind of soft.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a delicate line, right? Because okay, there's a lot of things going through my head, but again, there's no place for this submissive relationship to one another in the sense of the way we would think about it. We submit to one another. See, Ephesians is often misquoted. It'll say, right, like kind of joking, and be like, wives, submit to your husbands. And then they stop, right? But before that, it says, husbands, you know, live out your life, submit to your wives as Christ lived for the church. And we all know what Christ did. This is a historical account. There's no question about this. Jesus Christ died for the church. And so it's my job as a man, and it's every husband listening to this podcast's job as a man, to die to yourself. You have to put others' needs before yourself. Galatians tells us this every day. Every day. You know, pin your fleshly desires to the cross of Jesus, because what he completed for us is the fulfillment of everything we need. And if we start from that place and we bring that into our marriages, we're going to have a much better time being married, right? And it's not because like, oh, I'm like people say, oh, you're whipped, or, you know, you submit to whatever your wife says or anything like that. No, but out of a reverence and out of a love for Christ, I'm going to love the person that he gave me first and foremost, and probably love myself in a sense second to that. But to your point, and this is something I want to instill so wholeheartedly into our daughters, is that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, and they are a creation of God. And God saw it so fit that they were so valuable that he would come into this world, live a life, and die on the cross for you and for them and for anyone's listening, wives or children or anything, men as well. He did that for all of us. And so there is an inherent value on your life that should never be diminished by another person. And so when we do that in marriage and come together out of that reverence, it's like, oh my gosh, things can be so much better. But we are human, right? And so I think reminding and remembering that as a woman, you have standards, and you hold me to a high standard, as you should, and I'm glad you do. You don't put up with a bunch of malarkey, and nor should you. I don't know how God graced you with that vision, you know. No, I'm just kidding. But he did. He bought you at a price, and if he saw so fit for you to be that valuable, then it's my job to treat you with that same level of respect. And do I all the time? No. Do I wish I did? Yeah. As soon as I don't, I'm like, oh,
you do a pretty good job.
That was wrong. But I just don't want to paint this, you know, perception of perfection by any means. It's all a work. It's all a journey. And so anybody, again, listening to this, don't ever beat yourself up. Don't ever compare. Don't ever commiserate either. Right? Like we talk about that. Like there's that country song. It's like, I love it. It's Randy Travis. I think it's Deeper Than a Holler. Like as long as old men sit and talk about the weather, and as long as old women sit and talk about old men, you know, and like again, there's some of that that's fine, but what comes into our mind whenever we talk about our spouse, when we think about our spouse? Last point, and I'll get off my soapbox, but there's scripture that supports, husbands, your wife will be either, a crown upon your head or a curse. And so therefore, wives, and you do an amazing job of this, but wives, what responsibility could you take in the marriage to say, I'm going to bless, I'm going to shower, I'm going to uplift my husband in every instance, in every aspect that I can, praying over him, praying with him, praying for him, because that has a heart changing. And men, same exact thing. Like, we should be praying for and over and with our spouses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a statistic we were looking at, all that kind of recently. Maybe it's prompted this even podcast, was that everyone hears all the time that 50% of marriages end in divorce.
Isn't it in like the first 7 years?
Something like that.
Something.
It's, yeah.
I remember on our 7th anniversary, I'm like, well, guess we're doing it.
Yeah. And they said we wouldn't last. We got 10 coming up. We are 2 weeks out from 10 years. So, obviously there's a lot that still can come, in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years of marriage. But as long as we maintain that, I think, growth mindset towards it, we're going to get it figured out. But statistically, 50% of marriages fail. First marriages fail. I saw recently that second marriages, third marriages, they're like 70 and 80%. Like, it's crazy. Like,
that they'll fail?
Yes. Like,
really?
Like a second marriage fail. Like, if you know what I mean? Like, I thought that was a crazy statistic.
That is crazy. I wouldn't have guessed that.
The craziest one was this. And again, coming back to the point in the beginning of what makes a marriage great, it said that statistically less than 1%, I think it was even 0.1% of couples that consistently pray together get divorced. I mean, almost none.
That's wild.
Obviously, when God brings couples together, it is never his intention for there to be divorce. Mm-hmm. Is there circumstances? Are there things? Even the greatest, strongest, couples, it happens. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make you less valuable. It doesn't make you less worthy as a husband or a wife or a person. It just shines light, I think, to me, of where we have to root our relationships in, and just know that there are things that can happen. Satan's still at work in this world, and there are divisive powers that we might not be able to overcome in this world. But again, going back to Jesus did complete it, and there is no condemnation for anyone that maybe feels that way, as if they didn't get it right or they did everything they could. Again, that's not what this is about. It's just a matter of coming back to consistently praying together, consistently putting that at the forefront, I think, is where the magic happens.
And I think it can be vulnerable for sure. And so I think that it's easy to be like, well, that's uncomfortable, not going to do that. And I think that it's okay to have that conversation, like, with your spouse. Like, usually prayer's done in quiet and alone. And, I think that if you just come together and you're just like, look, I don't know what it looks like. This is weird. Yeah. It's hard. And then just do it.
Yeah.
And just, like, maybe even list out, like, what should we pray for together? So that it's not, like, on the fly, like, putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
And I think that just even starting it, it's like a muscle, and it gets just more comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like, let me ask you this. Do you like when I'm vulnerable with you?
In what way?
In life. Like, when I share my feelings with you, whenever I tell you
as long as they're you protect your feelings from me a lot.
That's fair.
Whenever it'll send me into
spiral. Yeah. An anxiety spiral.
Inside Out 2, the movie, anxiety.
Abby is anxiety. She could have played that character without a script.
Well, yeah, and a mix of nostalgia.
Yeah, a little touch. No.
And so, no, I do. I really do, especially some more than others. But
well, and I think that's a thing. I think we get, again, as couples, sometimes in trouble when we just don't communicate.
Yeah.
We don't share what we're feeling. I know, like, sometimes you're like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me do an assessment. You know what I mean?
Think about it. What happened? What was said?
And I have this pent up energy, and I'm bringing that forward into our marriage and with our kids and things like that. And it's like, that doesn't serve anyone.
Yeah.
But there's this thing about being a man where being vulnerable is so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And praying with your spouse actually is a vulnerable thing, because you're surrendering to Jesus in your life. And we're taught, as especially American men, you don't bow down. You don't surrender to nobody.
Mm-mm.
You pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You
Beat
stick
your
your chest out,
Yeah.
and you say, look at what I can do,
Hercules.
right? Hercules. Absolutely. And, oh, man, it's just, unfortunately, it's the inverse of that.
Yeah.
And I talk about this all the time, that, being a real man is different than what we would actually think it to be. And so, yeah, I think that's just my encouragement to couples and spouses. Is one takeaway from this is maybe try that out. Like you said, make a list.
Yeah.
What do you want to pray for? I want to pray for whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
rain tomorrow. I don't know, like whatever. Just do it
Simple.
together.
Yeah.
Hold hands, be there in each other's presence when the kids go to bed and whatever. It's just maybe start that practice. I think you'll find so much fruit to bear from that. Bringing God back into the proper position as the Lord of our lives, but especially as the Lord of our marriage.
Yeah, I agree.
What if I told you that God did not make a mistake when he gave you your spouse, no matter how frustrating they can be at times, that we are called to love each other unconditionally, just as God loved us? Abby, is it easy to love me unconditionally all the time?
It is. It's even easier if you do the dishes.
Especially when I say I'm going to do the dishes, right?
Yeah.
I think in today's society, it's oftentimes difficult, or it's honestly easier to look at and focus on differences as flaws within one another. Well, he does it differently, or she doesn't do this that way, or doesn't love me this way. We've talked in the podcast before about different love languages and the way we feel loved and the way we show love, how different those things can be. And so I think it's easier for us to put our minds focus on those things, as opposed to really focusing and sometimes trying and choosing the harder option in a day, which is to love each other. Like I said, unconditionally. I think that's the question. And some people might challenge that. Like, what do you think about that when I say the word unconditional? Is that easy?
It is. I mean, there definitely has to be times that people can feel frustrated when maybe, especially like we've talked about love languages before. We've talked about spender versus saver. We've talked about all of those things. But, there's type A and type B people. And for the most part, opposites attract on all of that. And so just the same way, the way that you feel loved is one way and your spouse is another way. And so that can be challenging because you may not feel like you're loved unconditionally, but it's like you are.
Sure.
And I think that that's why we've talked about so much that those things are just so important to know about your spouse, so that you know that they love you. They just might not be always showing it in your way, even though knowing is the whole point, so that they can show it in that way.
For sure. And I think the hardest maybe term, and maybe that's worth defining, but is like unconditional. And I don't know, maybe that's, again, worth breaking down, worth discussing. But when I say unconditional, it brings to mind, some of our friends, we had the honor to be able to go and witness their baptism last night. And it brought to mind the scripture in which God blesses Jesus. When Jesus comes out of the waters of baptism, he says, "Behold, my son, in whom I am well pleased." And a pastor I like to listen to, he said this one time where he said, the blessing came before the work, right? So God, like Jesus's public ministry had not started at all. He said, here's my son. I love him. I'm so pleased in him, right? And it's a showcase. I mean, the Bible is so much that a relationship between a heavenly father and an earthly son. And it just gives an example of what real love should look like, or the idea that God had for love when he thought of us. But, here he is blessing Jesus, right? Giving him the love that we all probably seek from each other and seek from our spouses sometimes. But Jesus hadn't done anything yet, quote unquote, for that blessing to come. And so sometimes I think when we're talking about marriage and I say the word unconditional, that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that I don't have any expectations of you, right? You talk about all the time, well, cleaning the house and making all the food, and you homeschool the kids and you do so many things. And I'm like, none of us expect that of you. Like, it's not an expectation from us, and you don't have to do those things to earn our love, right? Me and the kids to you. And so I think sometimes that's at least a point of contention and then clarification, is that when I talk about unconditional love, is that I'm saying I think we are called to love each other without a tie to an expectation. What do you think about that?
Yeah. No, I think that is, I think you explained it really well. And, you know, even whenever you tell me, it's like we are so wired for it to be conditional. You do this and you get this, you know, and I think that that's just the way that our brains are a lot of times are conditioned.
Yeah.
And so even though you guys don't love me just because your clothes are clean and your kids are educated.
We're grateful for the clean clothes.
And all of that. But like you love whenever you are looking for a certain pair of pants and they're clean.
I tell Abby all the time, I could probably just wear the same 2 pair of underwear on repeat because they're always clean and back in my drawer before it's ever a problem. And she's so on top of it. But I'm like, the difference, and we have a friend that calls her a Martha all the time because she's just busy, always getting stuff done. And my heart, you know, for you and maybe some of you listeners out there is that's a point of contention where you realize that, oh, my spouse is always trying to, whether they even psychologically realize it or not, you know, it could just be this subconscious thing that I think sometimes I tell you, I'm like, you know, I love you whether the laundry's done right now or not, right? So, yeah, I think it's a point where we see a lot of that, at least in frustrations in other people's marriages, come to the forefront too, because they're very real. That happens in ours all the time.
Yeah. And so, you know, just back to kind of how we're different and how everybody is going to be different. Maybe you're married to the opposite of you, whether that's type A and type B. How do you think that being married to a type A, how has that, like, does it strengthen you, or what, you know, what has it done to celebrate those differences?
I think somehow this comes somewhere out of possibly Song of Solomon or something like that, but I've said all the time, and I've seen scripture where it says, you know, your wife will be either, you know, a crown of blessing or a crown of thorns, kind of an idea on a godly man's head. And so my pursuit is always to be a man worthy of your love, right? And so being type B, though, we find this to be of great frustration because my intentions can always be so sound and so well intended. My follow through is not always as well as I would like for it to be. But there are so many ways that you have genuinely improved my humanity, like just me, and even having the ability to, like, you always say, like, even with our kids, you're always teaching them, like, to think ahead, right? If you prepare this for the, you know, get this ready, or you pack, you know, our lunch before the night or anything like that, it's just like thinking ahead as the type B person, not in an excusatory fashion. It's just like this thing that I do where I'm kind of running through life and I get really singularly focused on one thing. And sometimes your brain has moved on to 7, 8, 10 different other things that you have on your list, and you're getting all those things done. But you brought up the dishes, and I was happy to do the dishes, but then it was like, oh, let me go over here and do this, or, you know, whatever. And it's just like, there are so many ways that, yes, I think ultimately being in proximity to a type A person, there's a lot that is improved in my life. The question is, though, is there any benefit to being in relation and in proximity to a type B person all the time?
I imagine a type B person's brain to be like, you just like picture a field of daisies, or it just anything, any kind of flower, and they are just frolicking through it and picking it and sniffing it, and like they don't have any care or worry in their brain. That's what it feels like. And that feels so freeing to think of and picture. So you do encourage me to live in the moment and, you know, just kind of take a step back and just
go with the punches.
That is so hard
Buckle
to do.
up, along for the ride.
Well, it's when I first started going on vacation with your family, and I mean anything. It was just at the time where everybody was having, you know, showers and for weddings and babies, and I learned that y'all are type B, every single one of you.
The whole lot of us.
And so parties were very type B planned, but they always, you know, come out so perfectly. And I'm like, how? You didn't have a checklist that you know, went over a million times. But just a really quick funny story about type B and how your guys' brains work is our middle daughter is type B. She is her dad made over.
Brinley is all I picture when I think of type B, because that girl marches to the beat of her own drum.
And she loves
Not a single care in the world.
No. So last night you were grilling and you sent her in with the cheese and the cheese grater. And you said, will you put these away for me? Put this in the sink. Put this in the fridge. So she brings it in and sets it on the table, the table at the entry table, sets it there. And I think I see it and I'm like, oh, why is the cheese in the, she's like, oh, Dad asked me to bring it in and put it away. And I said, oh, you didn't make it very far.
Almost.
She's like, oh yeah, I'll do that part later. And so it was just like,
Later.
oh, a type A is like, nope, let's finish the whole task
Right.
instead of having to remember it and go back to
But
it.
I guarantee you, knowing that perspective or having perspective inside her, viewpoint is that she came in, she was like going to take her shoes off, looked up, maybe her brother and sister were riding their scooters or something.
Because we live in
And
the basement.
Yeah. So she's like over there and just left that behind. She never thought, I'm going to leave this behind. And this is a point for marriages. Whoever does this thing, they're not like, let me leave this behind because my type A wife or type A husband will just pick it up after me. Like, that is never a thought. It's just a matter of, we just moved on to the next thing. We were never inconsiderate or trying to be disrespectful or trying to be frustrating with anything that we do. It's just that sometimes our differences shine through in our daily actions. And I know that that is such a point of contention and frustration for everybody, but I have to say it for all the type B'ers out there. We are not leaving our socks on the floor in front of the hamper because we just think our wife will pick them up if we want, or husband, or whatever, whoever, or however
It's like
that relationship
magic.
goes. It is. There's this magic thing. You put the socks in front of the hamper and they wind up washed clean and back in the drawer folded. So, no, I think, again, it's just a point of discussion and we're having fun with that. But my invitation to anybody that would be listening is just to have those conversations around our differences and figure out what are ways that we could champion this in one another and be grateful to God that, like I say all the time, He gave me you because there are so many things that would never get done if it were just up to me. I just, not excusatory or calling it for what it's not, but like this ADHD bounce around kind of brain of like, oh, shiny object, next thing, like Brenly setting down the cheese, or whatever. And it's just so funny how that can come through, but it's also the hard work of in the day-to-day grind sometimes that marriage can be, where we're deeply and passionately in love with this person. However, they do these things that really annoy me.
Yeah. And so it's just, choosing to love them. And, you can talk about how, like, I don't know. I understand the point of like you can't fall in love because you can't fall out of love. I completely understand that. But I do think you fall in love.
I do
too.
too.
And you choose love. Like you choose to love that person and see the good and focus on, all the good qualities.
So obviously, having been through our own wedding, I was there for that. That was good. But having the privilege to actually officiate some of our friends' weddings, there's this concept that was made, I guess, manifest to us by the pastor that married us. It's a subtle semantics thing, but he would have us say during the marrying ceremony, so many people say, I do. Like, do you take this man? Do you take this woman? And yada, 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 and do the vows. And then we always say, I do. And I do is a choice for right now and today. And something we said, and then I carried that through and have shared that with other people that I had the opportunity to, but it's instead of I do, it says I will. And so I will means not only am I going to do that right now today, but I'm going to do it when the hard times come in the future as well, right? And I think you're talking about falling in love. Absolutely. There's a romanticized aspect of that, you've got the butterfly feeling and the, just something about that girl or something about that guy kind of feeling. And there's just something there. Absolutely. That's real. I think marriage and what the Bible teaches us, though, the best way I've heard it articulated is growing in love. There's no chance we're the same person that we were almost 11 years ago when we got married, right? And people talk about that all the time. And the new age, like modern idea is, well, live together for a little while, make sure that you can tolerate each other and then get married. And that's just not God's design for it. The idea is that, we're going to encounter, I say all the time, you got the best roommate in the world. You don't know how good you got it, because I had some bad roommates, no question. I'm Abby's first roommate. So,
Yes, I know that one.
But this idea that, it's just so convenience focused. And so my encouragement and truthfully, I guess it's a challenge to anybody that might be struggling in this area in their marriage of just like, choosing every single day to love this person as the gift from God in your life that they are. And if it might be a gift to work on you and through you in something that you could never even comprehend the significance of, because we're not God. And so he didn't make a mistake when he brought us, you and me, or anyone else out there together in marriage. He had an ideal for that. And you and that person have grown into a different person together. But when we keep God in the middle of it as this, triune, 3-part, you, me, and God idea, that's when something can actually grow and become something for God's glory, which is really what the idea is. He has this original creation, man, woman, and then he said, let us make them in our image, brought them together, and he said, be fruitful and multiply. And so now you've got the strong family unit. The principle that is everything the Natural Parents Company is, how do we strengthen a family unit so that we can go out and do God's glory in this life, right? Or do his will and give God glory in this life. So
Yeah, and I mean, conflict is going to be a part of marriage. You can't just let it divide. It can't cause division. So you have to talk about it and work on it and actually reflect where you may be the issue. That's a hard one to do. And I think that with anything, with conflict, there's certain things that you don't cross, like name calling, threats, whether it's like a physical threat or I'm going to leave, or whatever it may be. There's things that you definitely shouldn't cross, because once things are said, you can't unsay them.
Sure.
And I think, just taking a moment to take a breath and, just get rid of some of that frustration in the heat of the moment and then talk about it, or, be silent, or whatever you have to do until you're ready to talk about it. I think that all of those things are just good tools to have, because conflict will happen in marriage. It's just the way that you handle it that really sets the tone for the future and how you handle other conflicts that will arise. You just can't let it divide you.
Yeah, for sure. And ground rules, I think some couples would say, oh yeah, we have to have ground rules. Some friends of ours shared that with us. It's like, we've got rules for fighting. It's like, there's no raising your voice or cussing, because that can be triggering for someone of past experiences, right? Life, generational things, parents, the way they were raised, all that stuff, right? And we model some of that. There can be no like you said, the threat or actually leaving. Like, you can't just walk out. That does something in me, because of past experiences, whatever the person might be speaking towards, but having the tough part of that is the conversation preemptively when things are good, right? Hey, next time when we fight, can we set some ground rules for fighting? That's a crazy concept. But I think that to me is an aspect of unconditional love that's forthcoming. We know, hey, we're going to have disagreements. We're going to have quote unquote fights about certain things in life. We're not going to see eye to eye. But at the end of the day, remembering that God did not make a mistake when he brought us together. And so we're going to choose unity. We're going to pray about this, and we're going to figure out, how do we come together in some sort of middle ground where God's doing a work in my heart, God's doing a work in your heart. How do we mold that together to where it's honoring to him in this marriage that he created?
Yeah. And even if your kids are around and they may witness an argument, how you treat one another is not only teaching them how to treat others, or you can't disrespect mom and expect the kids to have respect for mom, and vice versa. But also, if you have maybe a tiff or a, disagreement, whatever it is, in front of your kids, make sure that they also see you making up and, seeing the resolution, because just seeing one part of it is not going to...
They're going to make assumptions.
Yeah, it's not going to, do well for them in the future, in their future relationships, or even with each other. And
I think they need to see reconciliation as well. And that's a huge part of it that you said. Reality of life is that we're never going to see eye to eye. You and I, we've talked about this. It's like, man, there's only been, fortunately, a handful of things that we've just been on totally polar opposite sides of things. But through the hardest thing, I think, is actually prayer of that, and then prayer together, because I think prayer is so vulnerable for us to do. Like, we feel this, there's a degree of intimacy, which is a weird word to use, but a degree of intimacy with God that's like, well, that's just my private life, right? I'm going to open that up and speak out loud this prayer with someone who you wouldn't, but could judge me, for my ability to pray or not pray or say the right words, right? And these are just things that happen, I think, in people's brains, or at least what I've heard from other people. And so to open yourself up to that level of vulnerability, to be in witness of someone praying to God about, hey, God, change my heart in this if it's wrong, that's really, really hard. And so, again, we use the term unconditional, but I think there are some ground rules we can lay that set the tone for us to love each other in a true unconditional manner.
Yeah, and just your differences aren't obstacles, they're just opportunities.
I love that. I love anything we can in life and business, but especially in relationships, when you see an obstacle ahead, what opportunity is actually on the other side of it? Because God just might be building you up to strengthen you for a new storm that's coming down the road, and his sovereignty will shine through if you just surrender your heart to his will for your marriage.
What if I told you that the most powerful voice to your husband is yours?
Hercules.
So basically, a wife can either be giving oxygen or poison
Oh, this is true.
to her husband.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's a truer statement that could ever actually be said. I think, okay, so I joke, Hercules. Y'all have heard me reference this all the time. There's a really great pastor, Joby Martin, and he talks about this. He has a few different times where he mentions that, and it's jokingly, it's lighthearted, but it's just like, if you just kind of cheer your man on every once in a while, he'll feel so good about himself. And it's so, so, so true. And I think at the heart of this conversation is that way deep down inside of every seemingly secure man is an insecure little boy that's just concerned whether or not he has what it takes. And that's a loaded question for everybody. But if God has aligned you with that seemingly secure man, but actually insecure little boy, then you can be an agent of grace in his life beyond your even imagination, because words are obviously so powerful. We reference that all the time. You love it. Both life and death are in the power of the tongue. But ladies, wives, you guys have no idea the power you hold to just, love your husband through your words.
And I had no idea that it was that important till, a while ago, but
yeah, in recent history,
yes,
right?
yeah, and just how much that mattered for me to say Hercules, or that, because it's like, well, I think you're great, and I feel like you should know that I think you're great.
Sure.
But you don't always
Yeah.
know that, and so just giving you that and telling you that you're doing great, or I'm really proud of you, and all of those things is so important.
And I don't think it's just love languages.
No.
Like, I know everyone, if you guys aren't familiar, that's something we've talked about a lot, but the 5 love languages,
Yeah.
one of them is words of affirmation. And so I don't think it's just Abby's referencing to me. I know it's fairly high on my hierarchy of love languages, but it's not my number one. It's just that I don't really care about any of y'all's opinion of me, but hers, I am so deeply concerned of whether or not she thinks I've got my life put together or not.
That is so, it's like, oh,
I know.
but it's like, I feel the same, I
Sure.
want you to think that I'm great too.
Right.
And I heard it once said that, like, a man can be leading, a huge group of people, and they can all be
Applauding.
yes, but he
Mhm.
looks to his wife and has to see her face have approval on it to
Right.
actually feel like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know why that is. Maybe we'll have to interview a child psychologist sometime or something like that, but where that's rooted. But I know I'm not alone in this. And so I'm sure there's guys listening that would say, yeah, that's true. Like, I don't care what anybody thinks of me, except for, like, you and I have had that conversation before where it's like, oh, if I just even perceive, which this isn't healthy, but like, if I perceive you thinking that I'm somehow not worthy or all these, bad words or whatever, then I'm in a bad mood and I'm being mean back
I
to
may
you.
just ask you a question, and
Yeah.
I can see your whole mood change. I'm like, I'm not after you.
Oh, thought you were.
I never said that
Right.
you're, this and that. And so
That's what I'm saying, is rooted in insecurity.
but I think it's because, yeah, all men, everybody, but men significantly deal with imposter syndrome.
Right.
And so a wife's affirmations can silence that.
The whole premise and the concept of the natural parents, we talk about this all the time, is that we feel as though Satan's primary attack in this world is on the strong family unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one of the most primary attacks to the man who should be at the helm of that strong family unit is right here in between his ears, right? And it comes by way of imposter syndrome a lot, especially in my life, but it's also something that's wild that I've seen this little bit of a rabbit hole here, but it's like in causing men to question their salvation, right? Any foothold, anything he could do to say, you're unworthy, you're no good, who cares what you've accomplished, right? Like I know some of the most accomplished men, business, pastors that, lead very large church bodies and, all this stuff that's like, they're sitting there and every day they have to combat that doubt in their mind. And the only reason I can assume that it's there is from a spiritual nature. Now, again, footholds and strongholds are strong and all this kind of stuff, but it's like, I just believe it to be a probably answering my own question from earlier. It's like this spiritual warfare aspect of it.
Yeah. And I mean, what a wife believes about her husband, he believes himself. And so, this just popped in my head of how like yikes it might be, because do you believe in your husband like truly deep down where nobody, do you actually?
Sure.
And so are you getting the result of what you truly believe about your husband, right? Like if you're like, gosh, he's just lazy, he doesn't even take out the trash, he, whatever, and you're subconsciously thinking that, like, does he feel that? Does
Sure.
he know that? Whereas if you're like doing toe touches and you're like, Hercules, you take
Right.
such good care of us,
Right.
and you do all this stuff for us, is he like, yeah, I do, and I'm gonna take out the trash today?
But like that's got to be hard. What if the other actually is kind of true?
Well, I mean, it
And then
is
in the here and the now,
Yeah.
like he's not stepping up to his full calling and
Mhm.
potential. I know that's a big point of contention for a lot of couples out there is like, she or he is not currently acting this way. Okay. Well, maybe it's our job then to love the future version of them that we can see in them. How do we bring that to them? Like
Mhm.
the last podcast episode we did, I talked specifically about my ability to see in other people what I don't even think they ever see in themselves.
Yeah.
Like it breaks my heart when I see somebody living a current level of existence that I know they have just kind of like slow slipped into, or they've negative self-talked themselves into. And I do think it's an important piece that we all have to work on that. Like if I were in that state, I've got to, do a little bit of work on my own mental health and all that stuff. But like having someone in your life that I know God put there for that purpose, or at least in part of that purpose, to like speak to who you could become. Right. And so I don't know, super delicate balance. I'm not saying I've got answers here, but I definitely got questions.
I feel like any little thing that he does do,
Hercules,
toe
yeah.
touches, like,
Oh, our kids laugh. I don't love Moana that much. Like, I kind of like that movie, but I like that song that is,
yes,
what
well,
can I say except you're welcome,
yes,
And it's like, I'll do that. 2 or 3 dishes in the sink. And I'm
Yes.
joking. I do
Yes.
mean that. But, in that sense, it's kind of like flip the script. Like, oh, thank you. Thank you for doing that, right? And if
Mhm.
you champion the thing, what you give attention to is going to grow, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you get attention to the lack or the laziness or the not what that person's capable of, well, then they're almost resentful going to, just by human nature,
Yeah.
right? I don't think out of spite, but just human nature is going to be like, well, I'll show you, kind of a thing. Like, think I'm lazy? I'll just watch football all day, or whatever. Like, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, there's an aspect of that.
Yeah.
But if you said, champion the one little thing, it's like, oh, that got her attention, right? Like,
So that's why you leave your socks.
yeah,
still
no, the
everywhere.
socks is magic. Your socks go on the ground and they just fold up themselves clean in your sock drawer. I have no idea how it happens. I left them in front of the hamper.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should
No,
try it sometime.
I will. I think I will. I'll just see how that goes. I really do. I think that if you just try to celebrate the one or two things, maybe to start with, just pick something that, your spouse does do that is right or helpful, or, something worth celebrating, even if it's not to benefit you or the whole family. Maybe it's that, he's taking good care of himself, or, whatever that may be. I think whenever you start to do that, I feel like it's just this chain of positive reactions. And
There's a a book, or I guess a book series, because it's from both perspectives, like The Power of the Praying Wife, The Power of the Praying Husband, right? And that just popped into my head when you were saying that, because sometimes the power of prayer is not the result effect of like what we're praying for. Again, Jesus is still on the throne. Anything is possible. He can do anything through any method of means that he sees fit. But I sometimes think that prayer changes our hearts and our minds to bring us into alignment with what we could do better in this situation, right? So if I were praying, let's say, right, there's that country song that's like, I'll pray for you, where it's like all negative things, like pray for something, not like that. Okay. Not like that. But if you begin to pray for your husband or your spouse or your wife, whichever side of that coin you're on, for the things that you want to see them in, but like, Lord, how can I do this? How can I champion that? How can I bring that to light in a grace-filled way, right? God's gonna reveal. Sometimes the power of prayer is in waiting, hearing, listening. You talk about feeling, actually. I don't know what feelings are, but Abby has feelings. She gets feelings when she prays. I feel like I get visual revelation, right? Like things I can close my eyes, and if I sit quietly and just think through my prayer, that's a big important part of this, is like being quiet in that moment of the prayer for God to reveal it to you, right? It'll come. And so then it's just our action, or our responsibility to act on it.
Right. And just praying to be able to see the good and to see all of that, and what they may need to be encouraged, and to just do that. So just making sure that we are speaking life into them and not poison.
Thanks.
What am I? Poison? I knew you wanted to say it too.
It's an inside joke. We'll reveal it to you. Tell them the inside joke.
Just my nephew would say that. What am I, poison? Anytime, like I think when he got in trouble or didn't get what he wanted, what am I, poison? He'd say.
So see, insecure little boy.
Yeah.
Right. We all grow up. We become man-children. I don't know how you would say that. And then God gives you a spouse. Now what? Right.
Yeah. So I just, even the smallest thing, just speaking life into our grown man child is going to go far. And so I'd love to know, what is your husband's, Hercules, what is he always wanting you to celebrate? Is it when he helps you out? Is it just stuff that he does on the day-to-day? Let us know in the comments.
In the book of Acts, we heard the sermon one time, and that was the first time I'd heard of it, but there's this couple, and it's I'm going to say it wrong. Priscilla and Aquila. I always try to mess their names up. So Priscilla and Aquila were a couple, and they were tent makers, meaning they were business owners or entrepreneurs, and they actually helped and played an integral role in kind of funding Paul's mission trip to, I think, Corinth and all this kind of stuff. And we heard this sermon one time, and it was just amazing to me. And it for where we were in our life, I hadn't even graduated chiropractic school yet, actually, when we heard it. We were at Passion City Church in Atlanta, Georgia. We'd only been there because we were at a conference. Chiropractors love conferences. So we were all about that life. And we were down there and heard this sermon. And he gave this vivid imagery of Aquila and Priscilla hand in hand, just kind of running forward in life. And he articulated that to what it could mean for us in our life, and how we could do that as a couple who had these initiatives, that had these goals of developing business at the time. We have more businesses now than we definitely ever even thought of. We were just thinking of having one business at that point in time. But every single one of our businesses having a kingdom purpose and a kingdom initiative. And how I think you and we joke all the time about our codependency. And I think I understand there's a psychological term there, and there's actually maybe some realism of that, but we joke about how codependent we are on one another. And I think God designed it that way. And I used to think of it sometimes as a weakness, but I believe you and I are only our strongest together. And if we were divided, if we weren't hand in hand running into these crazy business ideas that we have all the time, we wouldn't be our best version of ourselves, and we wouldn't be putting the best, product, if you will, forward for what God's laid on our heart for his glory in this world. And so,
yeah, I think just being able to blend all of that, our work and legacy and our family, there's so many times that our kids go with us to to do different things, whether that is, coming to the office because we have to do something, or, any of our other businesses. They're always there, willing to help, wanting to learn the ins and the outs. And so whenever we do that as a family, it's just really cool to just be able to blend that and teach them and show them, just different ways about entrepreneurship. But, one thing that people always say is, I don't know how you guys work together. And I really can't imagine not working with you, because if I didn't understand
Yeah.
what you did, not only would I not be able to celebrate the highs with you, but also go through the lows with you. And like, if I had to go through that myself, I know that that would be really, really difficult. And I know we've talked about this before, how a lot of the times, if you're up here and I'm down here, you pull me up, and vice versa. And I think that that is also why it is so good to just have a partner in doing that, that is your spouse and your best friend, to go through all of those highs and lows with, so that you can experience all of it.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I keep laughing because I was thinking about, so y'all, we played softball last weekend and we're still sore from it.
Yeah.
We're getting too old for that, but
Yes.
we got to pick our own walk-up songs, and Ab, as kind of a joke, chose Independent. Is that just what the song is? Yeah. And she says, definitely not true. I'm more codependent. COD. And I'm sorry, I just keep laughing about that. Yeah. So catch Abby on the bloopers there with the rap songs. But no, seriously, I think maybe it's not for everyone, but neither is maybe entrepreneurship. We talk about that all the time. I think the more and more we get clear on it, of what this community is and what it's becoming and the people that we're connecting with, it is very clear that it seems like God has us here to provide a sense of community for what oftentimes is a very isolating endeavor, right?
Yeah.
And so even though we're a couple and we have each other, I can't imagine if I was in entrepreneurship alone without my spouse on board. So maybe spouses, if your husband and or wife is feeling the call, take that to note. Like, it is a very isolating thing to do this alone, even as a couple. So imagine if they're literally in on it on their own. They might have a business partner or whatever, but people don't get it, right? They don't understand why you would do this, why you would leave that job, why you would take this crazy jump. We've talked about those types of concepts, building the boat, or in, this couple's analogy, building the tents. Like, why would you do these things? And it's just, there's no other reason other than it's because it's what God's laid on our heart.
Yeah.
But sometimes the chatter from the world, the loving people that are speaking to you from a place of fear, unfortunately, might be the loudest voice in your spouse's mind, and that becomes daunting at times. And so, like, I am so grateful to have you alongside of me so that we can go through the highs and the lows. If I were in low moments of entrepreneurship or whatever, but without you, that would be excessively difficult. And so I think, if you guys are like us and you're a couple that's maybe you still, again, have the 9-to-5 job or the steady W-2 job, but you're feeling this pull towards, it's amazing how many people, we're going back over a month now, back to the expo, how many people we've met that were in that season of life where they're like, I'm feeling this pull. I'm feeling like I should go this direction, but I don't know what that could look like. Joby Martin has an entire sermon series on, it's called The Next Thing. And his whole concept of that, and he's taught it other ways in other places, but he's like, what would you do for the glory of God if you knew you could not fail?
Yeah.
And then follow-up question, like, take a second, pause the video, answer that question. What would you do for God's glory if you knew you wouldn't fail? And then follow-up question, why aren't you doing it?
Yeah.
And somebody asked me that question, actually, that I coach with recently. And I said, hey, honestly, we are. Like, this is it. We live this crazy life only because we feel like God is calling us to do it.
And, some people think, okay, well, then that must mean that if I do it, it's just all going to be sunshine and rainbows, right? And yes, risk can mean not, it's when you take risk, you're not always going to succeed right away. And, you've probably heard entrepreneurship is just like this, in that there's nothing more true than that. But whenever you take the risk and whenever you do the thing that you feel called to do and it doesn't work out, that doesn't mean all of it doesn't work out. It means that step didn't work out, but it either worked on you or worked for you. Like there's something that it has done for you to be able to go to the next level. It's kind of like a video game. You know what I mean?
That's a good analogy.
And it's like, even whenever you feel like, okay, I really accomplished that, I just think of Mario. I got the star, and yep. And it's like, there's still another level, because oftentimes you think, okay, well, whenever I get there, whenever I reach that goal, by the time you reach that goal, you've already got 10 more made,
Right.
So taking time to celebrate how far you've come, but also just knowing that just because it's a no, or just because it didn't work out the way you thought it was going to, does not mean it's not working out at all. It just is working out differently and better and greater than what you could even imagine. And I think that there's so much weight in that. We were just talking on the way here. Car rides are our favorite thing ever. And so we were just chit-chatting and, just talking about different things that were going on in a few different of our businesses, and just how, oh, it feels like a closed door, or this one opened, and just the opportunity that really is there. And when you look for it, you can see it. And if you just choose to find it, you can find it. And so even if you feel like it's been closed door after, there's opportunity, and just like keep looking. And again, just having your spouse in that is so big. And our kids, like, think about it.
Right. And I think of the legacy that doing the hard thing can actually achieve. I don't want to be too, I guess, harsh in this, but I do want to be convicting, because I feel like if you're listening to this and you're feeling that pull, I don't know that it's my job, right? It's the Holy Spirit's job to lay that conviction upon your heart, but maybe I'm an agent of it. So I'm going to go ahead and say this, but it's like, if you're feeling that pull, you got to step out in it. Like I was talking about, some of the things we were talking about, it's like, hey, that didn't work out well. But as much sleep as I lost over that thing, which maybe I shouldn't have been losing sleep because God's in control, it's all okay, but I'm a human and I worry about things working out or whatever, but it's like, oh, that didn't go the way I thought it would. And yeah, I lost some sleep over that, but I would have lost way more sleep and way more respect for myself if I never would have tried.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate, again, you and couples, spouses who either one or both of you are an entrepreneur. Just keep that in mind. Just be the encourager in your crazy entrepreneur's mind's life. It's just like, hey, I'm glad you tried, right? Because there is actually no such thing as fail.
Yeah.
If God laid it on your heart, what would you do unto the glory of God if you knew you could not fail? Then failing actually is not an option.
Right.
If you can answer that question, you say, I would do this. I would go here. I would create that business. I would become this missionary to this place. Like whatever it is, if God's put it on your heart, it's actually impossible for you to fail. Failure and fear of failure is a misnomer that the devil is trying to use to keep you from doing the thing that God needs and wants you to do in this world. I think of all the times where we get, these social injustices and these things that we see where it's like, well, God, why don't you do something? That song says, and I know there's scripture about this, but it's like, he's like, I did. I created you. Mm-hmm. And so you were uniquely made on purpose and for a purpose. And your marriage might be the fulfillment of that purpose, or it might just be the starting catalyst for whatever God has next. Yeah. And so that's my encouragement to you guys that are listening to this. Again, you don't have to go and create a business, start a business. It's not about that. That's a huge thing in Abby and I's life, and we're trying to do everything that we do unto the glory of God so that we can push back against darkness and we can do G-forced, good forced entrepreneurship that actually funds different missions and does different things to, bring God's kingdom here into, revelation on earth. But I really think it's about the legacy that you could also leave for your children beyond that.
Right.
The legacy you could leave for humanity beyond that. Don't let the doubt of the enemy, fear you into complacency, I guess is the harsh way I could say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, like leaving that for your kids. And that's why it is so important for it to be a family journey, because your kids can't only see when you succeed. They have to see when you're in trying times, when you're like, okay, pivot, get creative, figure this out. What is the opportunity? Where is this going to go? They have to see that, because then that's how that they know because there'll always be problems. There's always going to be an obstacle, but like the personal growth that comes from that is so rewarding. But then it also helps you help others and improve and do all of that. And so just letting your kids be able to see a little bit behind the curtain and continue the legacy that you guys all started and built together will be so cool.
How fast do your kids see you fail?
Yeah.
Like, how fast can you, again, fail in quotes, because if you're doing what God's laid on your heart, there's no possible way for you to fail. There might be setback, there might be obstacle, there might be challenge to overcome, but it's just setting you up for whatever he has next in store for you. And Jesus is still on the throne. He's 100% in control. So if you step out in faith and it feels like, oh no, God, you gave me this promise and now I'm not seeing it. It's like, look at Joseph in the Bible. Like, what the enemy meant for evil, God turned for good. Yeah. So if you're just in a not very good situation right now, New Testament scripture says, he's working all things together for the good of those that love him. If it's not good right now, it is, because you're on the journey towards good, and good might come in fulfillment in heaven. That's going to be really, really, really good. But it's okay. Right now, it's impossible for you to fail. So whatever's on your heart, whatever you're supposed to be doing, I just encourage you towards it. And we're just crazy enough to be creating this community for people like you that has a crazy thought that you want to run after. We'll encourage you in it. We'll be your cheerleaders. I promise you will not hear me give a negative connotation towards your ideology, because so many people do that to me. Like, if it's really God breathed and you tell me, you lead with that, we might try to poke some holes in it together and work around it, mastermind it, so to speak, kind of like what we're going to be doing at the retreat, right? Talking about getting couples in a room and saying, what are you working on and what are you doing? And this is a safe place to share your crazy idea that you won't get, made fun of for. Like, I have goals and I have thoughts and I have ideas that I share with very few people.
Yes.
Because if I told it to the wrong person, they'd be like, they would plant those seeds of doubt in me. And it's like, we all need this sense of community around entrepreneurship, around kingdom focused initiatives, mission work, whatever that might be, that it's like, I'm almost embarrassed to tell somebody this. Yeah. But I think I'm supposed to do this. Oh, cool. How could we make that happen? Yeah. I don't need 27 reasons of why it won't work.
Right.
Give me the one that why it does.
Yes.
Right. And God, 3 letters, Jesus, right? That's enough. That's enough of a reason for me to run headlong after this thing.
Yeah, I think you're so right. It's just, like we were talking about, a while ago, it's just like quiet. You don't say anything.
Sure.
And unless you're in the right room, because there's so many people that aren't going to understand, because it's not their calling to be entrepreneurs or to start something. And so if you feel that call, you have to surround yourself in the right room. And that is something that I will say till I'm blue in the face, is that it matters who you surround yourself with, and it matters who you tell your ideas to. Yeah. So
I'm going to share this personal story. I don't think I've shared it publicly. I share it with people in private conversations all the time. But Abby and I went to a mastermind retreat. It was couples focused, and it was this whole concept and idea. And it kind of terrified me to say we were going to do it. I wanted to do it really bad. And I looked over at Abby and I'm like, no way she's going to go for this. And she's like, I think we should go to that. I was like, holy smokes. Okay, we're in. And so we start, this plan. But I knew in the back of my mind that the hesitating thought that I had was like, I don't belong in that room.
Right.
Like, I knew that we were going to be the smallest business in that room. I knew we were going to be probably the lowest net worth in that room. But then at the same time, I was like, holy smokes, that's actually exactly why I need to be in that room.
Yeah.
And the National Parents Committee itself, this podcast, the expo we're doing, the retreats we do, the online community that we're creating for families that want to run after kingdom initiatives, it was born in that room, at that mastermind, in that concept where it was like, so much of me was almost resistant to want to do it, but it was like, oh, we have to. And it's like, I think it gets a bad rap when we start looking at it. And we've talked a lot about this in different episodes and stuff, when we're saying, well, our kids are priority. Yes, priority means priority. That's all it means. It doesn't mean only. It doesn't mean it's the, exclusive. Your children are the only thing you do in a 24-hour day, mom. Like, you're Abby, and God made you Abby before he made you mom. He also blessed you with some amazing children, and that's a huge priority. And he wants to make sure that we as a family are stewarding them towards the direction that he would have them go. But he's also put it on our heart to create things. And he made you, especially all the women listening, creative. Like, you are the only co-creators with God. Like, I mean, we get to play a very small role in that, but y'all actually create other human beings, which is crazy. And you guys, that's an amazing piece of your identity, but it's not everything. And so when we're a couple that's running after something that God's laid on our heart to create, he made us for that. And he made you guys listening for that reason, whatever it is. I can't wait to hear what it is. Please tell me what the thing is that God's put on your heart. I promise you, you have an encourager and a champion in both Abby and I.
Yeah. And you say that about the mastermind or retreat that we went to. Like, it was the best top 5 experiences ever.
Right.
And just in general, us going to conferences and expos and retreats, so much growth happened, not only for ourselves, like personal, relational, and business. They've always been our favorite things to do.
Yeah, we love them.
You come out like so good.
Self-help
you get some
junkies,
yes,
a little bit,
like,
especially when it's aligned with biblical principles.
Right.
So.
And then again, the room that you're in and the people you are around and the personal growth and the time with your spouse, if you do entrepreneurship with your spouse, like all of it was just, it's our favorite times. It's always exciting whenever we get to go.
Yeah. And again, I think along the whole theme of creating something, we go back to Priscilla and Aquila. I don't know what I always try to make their names, but it's always different. But Aquila and Priscilla, like, they had created all of that, and then they were able to host things. They were able to have a home. Had this. I almost looked at it as like, and this is how I think of our home too. God's blessed us with the ability to build a home, and we have this farm and all this cool stuff. And it's like the entire intention behind that the whole time has always been like, what could we do with it?
Yeah.
What could we do with it? What would we do with it? And that was what they did. And we look at that in the Bible, and it was like this outpost for the early church. Mm-hmm. And now we have the church. And I actually think, going back to creating something, what if you had the time freedom to be able to host or do or unwind, or, what I'm saying? Like, all these things, because maybe your business permits you to work from home.
Yeah.
We talk about entrepreneurship all the time. I love the idea of entrepreneurship over like small business. Small business, I feel like you just wind up, you're working 100-hour weeks, right? Inside of a small business that is so ultimately dependent upon you. When we talk about this, I love talking about and helping couples discern and find, like, how could we do this where we increase our time freedom, so now we can even be better at prioritizing our children, but then our home could become this center and this outpost of maybe our local church where we get to host things through it. And unto the glory of God. That's one of my favorite phrases. Like, one of the favorite things I say is like, we've got this now, and it's for God's glory, whatever comes of it. And God, yes, is on the table. You just tell me what question I'm answering, and then it's just like hand in hand, you and me, you guys listening, your couple, your husband, your wife, whatever that looks like for you, running after the thing that God's laid on your heart.
Yeah, absolutely. So if this sounds like you, or sounds like just a place that you've thought about going or felt led to go and you didn't know what next steps to take, we hope that you join us in September at the retreat. There is going to be a link in the notes. If you would like to come and join us, we'd love to see you there. From the bottom of our hearts, we want to say thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone you know and leave a review. By doing so, we're able to grow this community of amazing people just like you and raise a generation of children that know God and do His will on earth. We'll see you next time.
This is the Natural Parents Podcast with Ryan and Abby Hukin.